I am Lena Hartwell, and I am 33 years old. If you met me in passing, you'd probably describe my life as calm, stable, even a little boring. I work as a senior dentist at a private clinic in Crestview Heights, a clean, well-organized part of the city where people care deeply about schedules, insurance plans, and polished smiles. I own a 2-bedroom apartment that I'm still paying a mortgage on, wake up before sunrise most days, drink my coffee black, and measure my weeks by patient appointments and work deadlines. It's not glamorous, but it's mine. I built it carefully, step by step, without shortcuts. Before we go any further, please like, comment, and subscribe, and don't forget to tell us where you're watching from. Your support helps stories like this reach people who may be living through something similar in silence. What most people don't see is how much of my life has been shaped by learning to be the reasonable one. The one who doesn't complain. The one who understands. The one who steps aside so things don't become difficult. That habit didn't come from nowhere. It started when I was 12 years old, on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon that ended with my father collapsing on our living room floor. One moment he was alive, teasing me about my messy backpack, and the next moment he wasn't breathing. A heart attack, the doctors said later. Sudden. No warning. No time for goodbyes. My mother, Elaine, never truly recovered from that loss. She functioned, yes, but something inside her shut down permanently. Grief sat in our house like an uninvited guest who refused to leave. 2 years later, when I was 14, she remarried a man named Victor Reynolds. He was polite, soft-spoken, and careful not to step on emotional landmines. He also had a daughter from his previous marriage, Maya, who was 9 years old at the time. When Victor and Maya moved into our home, it felt like my father's absence suddenly had weight. The house didn't just feel quieter. It felt occupied in a way that didn't belong to us. Still, I tried. Maya was young and curious, with an energy that hadn't yet learned how to be cautious. We played video games together in the afternoons. I helped her with homework at the kitchen table. Sometimes she followed me around like a shadow, asking questions about school, about friends, about what it was like to be older. Victor made an effort too. He attended my school events, fixed broken cabinets, organized weekend barbecues. He never tried to replace my father, which I appreciated. He was present without being intrusive, and for a while, things felt fine. Not perfect. Not warm in the way families on television looked. But functional. And when you're young, you learn quickly that fine is sometimes the safest thing to aim for. As I got older, I learned to stay out of the way. I learned to help without being asked. I learned that keeping peace often meant swallowing discomfort. By the time I finished high school, those lessons were ingrained in me. I left for dental school with relief and guilt mixed together in equal parts. Relief because I finally had space. Guilt because leaving meant stepping out of the role I'd been quietly playing for years. Dental school was demanding in ways I hadn't fully anticipated. Long nights, relentless exams, constant pressure to perform. I didn't have the luxury of leaning on family support, so I learned to rely on discipline instead. While other students complained about stress, I buried myself in routine. Study, work, sleep, repeat. Slowly, painfully, I earned my degree. By the time I landed a position at a reputable private clinic, my life had narrowed into something manageable. I moved into my own apartment downtown. I paid my bills on time. I planned for the future in spreadsheets and budgets. My relationship with my family faded into occasional holiday visits and surface-level conversations. We texted. We exchanged polite updates. We didn't talk about anything that mattered. Maya grew up too. She went to college, studied business administration. From what I could tell through social media and my mother's occasional comments, she was doing well enough. We weren't close, but there was no open conflict. Just distance. Then last year, my grandmother passed away. My father's mother. She was 90 years old and sharp until the very end. Losing her felt different from losing my dad, but it reopened wounds I thought had scarred over. She had been my quiet anchor growing up, the one who remembered my father as he truly was, the one who told stories about him that no one else could. At the reading of her will, something unexpected happened. Among the jewelry, the small financial gifts, and the sentimental items, there was one major decision that no one had seen coming. She left me her apartment. A modest 2-bedroom place in Brookstone District. Not luxurious, but solid. Well-maintained. The kind of property that held its value quietly over time. The estimated worth was around $310,000. I was stunned. Grateful. overwhelmed. I had no idea she'd planned this, and for a moment, I felt like my father had reached out across time to steady me. After the lawyer finished reading the will, we all went out for coffee. It felt awkward, like a group of people pretending to be closer than they actually were. Somewhere between stirring sugar into my drink and glancing at the window, I casually mentioned my plan. "I'm thinking of renting out the apartment," I said. "The income could help me pay down my mortgage faster." The silence that followed was subtle, but I noticed it. My mother and Victor exchanged a look, the kind of look married couples use when they're having an entire conversation without words. Maya suddenly leaned forward. "I've been meaning to tell you something," she said brightly. "I've been seeing someone. His name is Aaron. We've been together for almost 3 years." I blinked. 3 years. I had no idea. It hit me how distant I'd become from my own family. "That's great," I said honestly, though I didn't understand why this was coming up now. Elaine reached across the table and placed her hand over mine. "The thing is," she said gently, "they need somewhere to live. Aaron's lease is ending, and Maya's been living in a tiny studio. Your grandmother's place would be perfect for them." There it was. The request, wrapped in warmth and family language. "You want them to live there?" I asked carefully. "Just temporarily," Maya said quickly. "Until we save up and get on our feet." I hesitated. I had every reason to say no. I had plans, financial goals, a clear vision for how that apartment could change my future. But I looked at their faces, hopeful, expectant, and felt the familiar weight of responsibility settle on my shoulders. "How long?" I asked. "Maybe a year," Victor suggested. "They'd handle utilities and upkeep, of course." I nodded slowly. "Okay, 1 year. Utilities are on you, and you keep the place in good condition." Maya nearly bounced in her seat. "Thank you, Lena. You're the best." Elaine squeezed my hand. "This means so much to us." I smiled, even as I did the math in my head. Even as I calculated how much longer it would take me to pay off my mortgage without rental income. I told myself it was family. I told myself my father would have wanted generosity. I told myself I could handle it. 2 weeks later, Maya and Aaron moved into my grandmother's apartment. I met Aaron briefly when I handed over the keys. He seemed pleasant enough, worked in tech, polite, confident. The apartment looked good. Maya had always been neat, and I trusted she'd take care of it. Months passed. I adjusted my budget. I skipped trips. I cut back on extras. It was tighter than I liked, but manageable. Maya sent occasional texts about minor issues, a dripping faucet, a loose handle. Nothing alarming. From the outside, it looked like everything was working. A full year went by, and I'll admit it, I forgot the arrangement was supposed to be temporary. Life was busy. Work was demanding. I was exhausted most days. When my mother called one Tuesday evening and invited me to dinner that weekend, I didn't think twice. I had no idea that dinner would be the moment everything changed. Saturday came faster than I expected. Work had been brutal that week, back-to-back patients, a root canal that turned into a 2-hour ordeal, and a staff shortage that left everyone tense. By the time I left the clinic, my shoulders ached and my head throbbed, but I still stopped by Hawthorne Bakery like my mother suggested. I bought the apple pie Victor loved, the one with the thick crust and just enough cinnamon to feel nostalgic. Old habits die hard. Even when I felt distant from my family, I still showed up the way I always had, prepared, considerate, dependable. When I pulled into my mother's driveway, something felt off immediately. There were more cars than usual. Maya's compact sedan was there. Aaron's dark SUV sat behind it. And then there was another vehicle I didn't recognize at all, parked awkwardly near the curb. I paused for a second before getting out of my car, that quiet instinct whispering that this dinner wasn't going to be what I thought it was. Victor opened the door with an exaggerated smile. "There she is," he said warmly. Come in, come in." Inside, the house smelled like roasted chicken and expensive candles, my mother's way of signaling that something important was happening. In the dining room, I saw Maya and Aaron seated side by side, both dressed a little nicer than casual family dinner required. Across from them sat an older couple I had never met before, both well-dressed, posture stiff, eyes already studying me. "Lena, these are Aaron's parents," Maya said brightly. "Nora and Samuel." I froze for half a second, then smiled politely and shook their hands. "It's nice to meet you," I said, even though my stomach tightened. Dinner started normally enough. Victor told one of his long-winded stories. My mother laughed too loudly at the punchlines. Aaron's parents asked me questions about my job, my clinic, my schedule. It felt less like conversation and more like an interview. I answered politely, unaware that every word was being filed away. Halfway through the meal, Maya cleared her throat dramatically. "So," she said, lifting her left hand. Aaron proposed. The ring caught the light immediately. "Big. Flashy. Expensive." "Oh," I said, genuinely surprised. "Congratulations." Everyone clapped. My mother wiped her eyes. Victor raised his glass. Aaron squeezed Maya's hand like he'd just won something. "Thank you," Maya said, beaming. "We're planning the wedding for about 6 months from now." "That's exciting," I said, smiling. And I meant it, at least for that moment. Then my mother set down her fork with deliberate calm. "That's actually why we invited everyone together tonight," she said. There it was. Maya reached under the table and pulled out a thick folder. She placed it in front of me like evidence. "We've been doing research," she said. "Venues, catering, photography, everything. We want something really special." I flipped the folder open slowly. The number stared back at me. $92,000. I felt the air leave my lungs. 92,000? I repeated, hoping I'd misread it. Aaron nodded. "It's not unreasonable these days if you want something elegant." I stared at him, then at Maya, then at my mother. No one looked embarrassed. No one looked hesitant. "And where do I come in?" I asked carefully. Maya smiled, the same smile she used when she wanted something growing up. "Well, you're doing really well. You have a great career, no kids, no major responsibilities. We thought you could help." "How much help?" I asked, already knowing the answer. My mother leaned forward. "All of it." The room went silent. I set the folder down slowly. My heart pounded, but my voice stayed calm. "I'm happy to contribute," I said. "But $92,000 is not realistic for me. I can give $20,000. That's generous, and it's what I can afford." The change was instant. Maya's smile vanished. Aaron's jaw tightened. His parents exchanged looks. "20,000? Maya repeated flatly. "Yes," she scoffed. "That's barely anything compared to what you make." I felt my face heat up. "You have no idea what I make, and you definitely don't know my expenses." Aaron's mother, Nora, leaned forward. A real sister would want to support her family's happiness. That word, real, hit harder than it should have. "I support happiness," I said. "I don't fund fantasy." That's when Maya laughed. "What future are you even saving for?" she said loudly. "You don't have a partner. No kids. No life. What do you need all that money for?" The table erupted, not in loud laughter, but in that quiet, uncomfortable way people laugh when they think cruelty is justified. Something inside me snapped, not loudly, not dramatically, but permanently. I put my fork down. "You know what?" I said calmly. "After that comment, I won't be contributing anything." The laughter stopped. "If you want a wedding like this," I continued, "then save for it yourselves." Aaron's father raised his hands. "Now let's not be hasty." "You're welcome to contribute," I said, turning to him. "You're asking for almost $100,000. Surely you can help." His expression hardened. "We're retired. That's unreasonable." I shrugged. "So is demanding it from me." Maya stood up so fast her chair scraped loudly against the floor. "You are toxic," she said, her voice shaking with anger. "You humiliate me financially. You act superior. I need space from you." I looked to my mother. Surely now she would intervene. She didn't. Victor nodded slowly. "You're cutting yourself off from this family by behaving like this." I stared at them all for a long moment. Every sacrifice. Every swallowed feeling. Every time I'd stepped back so things could stay peaceful. "I understand," I said quietly. "And I accept your decision." I grabbed my purse and stood. "Thanks for dinner." No one stopped me. The drive home felt endless. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just drove in silence, hands tight on the steering wheel, replaying the laughter, the entitlement, the way my value evaporated the moment I said no. That night, I barely slept. The next morning, something shifted. Not rage. Not sadness. Clarity. I sat at my kitchen table with a calculator and my laptop. I pulled up rental listings in Brookstone District. 2-bedroom apartments like my grandmother's were going for $1,450 to $1,600 a month. I had been giving up nearly $19,000 a year. For people who called me toxic. I picked up my phone and called a lawyer named Mr. Halvorson. a former patient who had once told me, half-jokingly, that dentists deserved legal protection more than anyone else. I need to evict someone from a property I own, I said. A family situation? He asked knowingly. Yes. Come in tomorrow. The following afternoon, I sat in his sleek office and laid everything out. The inheritance, the verbal agreement, the lack of lease. You're well within your rights, he said. 30 days notice. We drafted the paperwork. I sent it certified mail that same day. 3 days later, my phone exploded. Maya. My mother. Victor. Aaron. Voicemails filled with panic. I ignored all of them. Until Friday evening, when Maya called again. I answered. What? I said. What is this eviction notice? She shouted. Are you insane? No, I said calmly. I'm just toxic. Remember? She pleaded. She apologized. She minimized. I didn't bend. 30 days, I said. That's it. When I hung up, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Relief. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't paying to be tolerated. I was choosing myself. The weekend after that phone call was the quietest I'd had in years. No family group chats buzzing. No passive-aggressive messages disguised as concern. No emotional labor disguised as love. Just silence. And for the first time, that silence didn't feel heavy. It felt clean. On Monday morning, as I was brushing my teeth and getting ready for work, my doorbell rang. I already knew who it was. I looked through the peephole and saw all of them standing there like an unwanted reunion photo. My mother Elaine clutching her purse too tightly, Victor standing stiff and irritated, Maya with dark circles under her eyes, and Aaron hovering behind her, arms crossed defensively. They looked exhausted, desperate, and inconvenienced, like people who had finally realized a safety net had been pulled away. I opened the door, but I didn't step aside. We need to talk, my mother said quickly. About what? I asked calmly. Victor gestured vaguely. This whole situation. It's gotten out of hand. Maya stepped forward. I've been thinking, she said, suddenly soft. I'll accept your offer. I raised an eyebrow. What offer? The 20,000, she said. You can give that, and we can put everything behind us. You can still come to the wedding. And we'll stay in the apartment. For a moment, I just stared at her. Then I laughed. Not a polite laugh. Not an awkward one. I laughed so hard I had to grab the doorframe to steady myself. Tears rolled down my face, not from sadness, but from disbelief. Are you serious? I finally asked. They all looked confused, like I was the unreasonable one. Let me make sure I understand, I said, wiping my eyes. You invited me to dinner under false pretenses. You ambushed me with strangers. You demanded nearly $100,000. When I offered what I could afford, you mocked me. You called me toxic. You cut me off. And now you think I'll hand over money and let you continue living rent-free? Silence. You showed me exactly who you are, I continued calmly. And I believe you. Maya's voice cracked. You're ruining my life. No, I said. I stopped financing it. My mother reached out. Lena, please. No, I interrupted. You don't get to say please now. I stepped back and pointed gently toward the hallway. You have 3 weeks left, I said. Use them wisely. I closed the door and locked it. That was the last time any of them stood in my home. The remaining weeks passed with an eerie calm. No more calls. No more texts. It was as if they'd finally realized there was nothing left to extract. I focused on my work, my routines, my life. I contacted contractors to get estimates for repainting and minor repairs at my grandmother's apartment. I planned. I prepared. On the final day of the eviction period, I drove to Brookstone District with Mr. Halvorson, just in case things became confrontational. We parked across the street and waited. Right on time, Maya and Aaron emerged from the building carrying boxes. A rented moving truck sat at the curb. My mother and Victor were there too, helping silently. No one looked happy. No one looked victorious. They looked tired in a way that had nothing to do with physical exhaustion. Maya noticed my car and froze. Our eyes met through the windshield. For a moment, I expected anger. A scene. But instead, she just looked defeated. She walked over and knocked on my window. I rolled it down. She dropped the keys into my lap. Here. Thank you, I said calmly. I hope you're happy, she muttered. I am, I replied honestly. She stared at me, searching for guilt, regret, something to blame. When she found none, she turned away and climbed into the truck. They drove off without looking back. Inside the apartment, everything was intact. No vandalism. No mess. Just the quiet echo of an ending. 2 weeks later, the apartment was repainted, professionally cleaned, and listed for rent at $1,550 a month. I received multiple inquiries within days. I chose a quiet, responsible couple, both teachers, who paid the deposit and first month's rent without hesitation. For the first time since inheriting the apartment, it was working for me. The extra income changed more than my finances. It changed my sense of control. I paid down my mortgage faster. I slept better. I stopped bracing myself for the next family crisis. I realized how much mental space I'd been donating to people who only saw me as a resource. 3 months later, I saw Maya's wedding photos online. The wedding was modest. Simple venue. Small guest list. Nothing extravagant. Nothing wrong with it. Just very different from the fantasy they'd tried to sell me. Maya smiled in the photos, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. Aaron looked content enough. I felt nothing. No regret. No longing. Just closure. A few months after that, my phone rang late one evening. My mother's name flashed on the screen. I answered. "We need to talk," she said. "It's about Maya." I already knew. "She and Aaron are struggling financially," she continued. "They're looking for somewhere to stay, and we thought, maybe, you'd consider letting them move back into your grandmother's apartment." I laughed softly. "No, just temporarily," she pleaded. "You could help family." "Mom," I said calmly. "They made it clear I wasn't family when I said no to money. That was a long time ago." "No," I replied. "That was the truth." I hung up and blocked every number. It's been over a year now. My tenants are reliable. My mortgage is shrinking faster than I ever planned. I've traveled. I've dated. I've built friendships rooted in respect instead of obligation. My life is quieter, but it's honest. Sometimes people ask if I miss my family. I don't miss them. I miss the idea of a family that loves without conditions. But I finally learned this. Real family doesn't treat you like a financial backup plan. Real family doesn't punish boundaries. Real family doesn't disappear the moment you stop paying. I didn't lose a family. I escaped a transaction. And choosing myself was the most peaceful decision I've ever made. If this story resonated with you, please like, comment, and subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from. Your support helps stories like this reach the people who need them most.